This is Anthony Potter-Ratrad, and today I wanted to just talk a little bit about give my thoughts on the two firings at LifeSite News, since everybody else is talking about it, and I have my own thoughts. I don't know if I take a different slant than when I hear others. Others seem to be pretty upset or shocked. I don't know, that kind of nature. I personally, I'm like, I guess I'm indifferent about it, to be honest. I haven't watched or listened to LifeSite News, and probably since early COVID time. When I was early listening on to them, I started to notice that they were obviously very conservative Nova Soto. And they were also, in my mind, very ecumenical or ecumenists, at least in regard to conservative conservative Protestants. They weren't like full blown, you could say, ecumenists, but they were ecumenists nonetheless, false ecumenists in regards to conservative Prots. So they had their flavor that they would have false ecumenism with. Okay, they had their tastes, if you want to put it that way. They tended to like the conservative Prots, and they would have ecumenical dates with them. And I kind of noticed that, so I was like, I'm kind of over this. I'm the whole conservative Nova Soto thing just wasn't too appealing to me. But they were kind of false. They did have that false ecumenist trend, and not just trend, but they were. I remember encouraging prayers with Protestants, maybe against abortion, and having prayer rallies and prayer vigils. And I even remember during the COVID time when they were having the lockdowns, they would go to these different Protestant churches that were fighting that. And they would almost like promote them as if they're, fighting for the faith as well as, fighting for the faith. As if we're all on the same team fighting the faith, which is not the case at all. But that was like the vibe they would give off. So, needless to say, I wasn't a huge fan of LifeSite, so I really didn't listen to them and watch them that much. So, when I heard that John Henry Weston was let go, I thought, okay, all right. But I'm also not surprised, too, because it sounded like, just from hearing portions of things he would say, is that he kind of started sounding, very anti the Nova Soto Pope, either anti-Francis or anti-Leo. Again, this is just from bits and pieces of hearing, because I really didn't watch it too much. But here's the thing, that if you're like a conservative Nova Soto and you're really bothered by the fact that John Henry Weston was released, or maybe let's say you're SSPXer type, or maybe even set of contest type, and you're like, man, I can't believe they let John Henry Weston go because he's, saying things of, that he, what do you expect them to do? Okay, he built up a Nova Soto conservative brand of news. So if he's starting to buck on that, and that's what they are, okay? So if he starts to buck on that, you start in any way, flavoring your news with any kind of Sede talk, and I'm not talking about going full blown Sede. I'm talking about just any kind of sprinkling, the seasoning of any kind of Sede sounding material. You're gone, dude. Like, they're not gonna tolerate that kind of thing. That has to be expected. He had to expect that he would be let go if he starts bucking against his Nova Soto donors. Maybe, I'm sure he has Nova Soto conservative donors. All right. So, that's what's going to happen. So I'm not surprised. And there was another one that was let go. Stephen, I think his name was Stephen Knox. And he more so. He sounded like a good dude. I personally have no issue with him. But But he put out a tweet that he was let go from LifeSite News also. Now with Stephen Knox, he was more overt. I mean, he went on Catholic Family Podcast. Okay, one of the largest set of Acontas, podcasts, and start talking about whatever he was talking about. He would write out against Francis and Leo. I mean, and he was more overt, okay, because he's actually being friendly with those who were with Sedevacantist. If anyone ever desires, if you're a person who desires to get into the inroad of Catholic Inc., whether it's liberal Catholic Inc., okay, conservative Catholic Inc., traditionalist Catholic Inc., okay, if you have any kind of smell of Sedevacantism on you, it's over. It's over for getting that inroad. You just got to know that. That's why you got to just create your own thing. Okay, Sedes are not invited to the party. Okay, we're not invited to the party. How often do you see Sedes being invited onto non-Sede channels to talk about, hey, Sedevacantism? It's not going to happen. Okay, for instance, people like Matt Fradd or whatnot will invite Orthodox, Protestants, whatever, to have a discussion. All right. But to actually invite a Sede and actually have a discussion about your position. Now, I will say about Matt Fradd, he actually had that debate, with Brother Peter Diamond. But, I think he made a calculated error, I guess, in the sense that he probably thought he'd make Sedes look really stupid, But he invites the most radical of, someone that most Sedes don't even have any respect for, So you're not having like a normal Sede priest come on and talk about the issues of Sedevacantism and what's going on. No, they don't do that. If they do, it's very rare. I mean, maybe somebody has. It'd be interesting to listen to the interview or whatever, or to talk. I'm not aware of any, and if there is, it'd be cool to listen to. But for the most part, they're not invited to the party. They're kind of outcast. For the most part, I'm not bothered by that. Okay, personally, I'm not bothered by that. That we're not invited to the party, whatever. I think it's expected. I think it'd be cool, to be invited to the party. But I'm, invited to discuss this issue because most Sedes, for the most part, they're just trying to be faithful Catholics, and we're seeing the problems that are happening, and we're seeing the things that are contradicted by what was always taught and promoted by the popes, and things that were condemned by the popes are being promoted as true now. So there's a clear contradiction from what was taking place prior to what the implementations of Vatican II, what Vatican II taught, and their implementations by the subsequent hierarchy. That needs to be talked about, and it has been. Like the SSPX talks about it, the Resistance talks about it, but they come to different conclusions. Once you take the position that these people are false claimants to the papacy, that the seat is empty, somehow that's taking it a little too far to a lot of people, and then they just don't want to talk to you. So I don't know. This is my take on the whole thing with John Henry Weston, Stephen Knox, is that they had to see it coming. They had to see it coming. And with Steve Knox, he had to know that once he starts putting himself out there like that, they're not going to change. It's not like these people are like, oh, hey, yeah, you're preaching the truth, and they're just he's going to convert all of LifeSite. No. They have their donors, they have their whatever, and they have their stick, like this is what they are. We're conservative, Nova Soto Inc., with maybe a slight flavor of SSPX-ness, maybe. But once you start kind of having the Sede sound, you're not part of the program anymore. You've stepped out of what they are. You're once they start having like Sede writers. Not saying Stephen Knox is Sede, but he's certainly Sede friendly. He's been on Sede podcasts, talking about in agreement with Sedes on issues. So it means he's friendly with them, and he seems to be opposed to at least Francis and certainly Francis, and I'm assuming Leo as well. You start doing that, you're bucking the grain. It's gonna happen, man. So it sucks, that they got released, but I think most people should stop listening to these people anyway. What I mean by these people, I mean LifeSite News, like Conservative Minnesota Inc. people. They're just gatekeepers they're not addressing the real problems, and they're all most of them are false ecumenists. They all have their issue. They're all the same. They're all the same, but with just they're all part of the pie. They're just on different portions of the pie. Okay, yeah, so you got on one side of the pie you got the LifeSite News. The other side of the pie you got EWTN. The other side of the pie you got whatever the liberal America Jesuit magazine. They're all there on the pie because they all support Vatican II and the false ecumenism. They do. They all support it. They just have their different slant on it, but they're not seeing the real problem. So to me, I'm like, maybe this might open up what John Henry Weston to realize what the real problem is. Maybe his eyes will open up more to it. And if Stephen hasn't, then maybe that will help. That will do for him too. And God willing, they find some good stuff. And no one likes to lose their job, but they had to see this coming. Ave Maria.